Despite all the difficulties that 2020 threw at them, the organisers of the Enduro World Series still managed to make a 2020 season happen, and that's pretty awesome in itself, and we were super happy to have that racing to watch. So here's a quick recap of what happened this year in the Enduro World Series. Against all odds, the EWS was actually able to put together a shortened but no less exciting set of races for the racers who were actually able to participate. The season started where 2019 left off in Zermatt, Switzerland. This was a classic alpine wide open race with rocky descents at high altitude. Mixed in this year were cold conditions and wet weather. It couldn't be a simple race, not in a year like this. We didn't have the pleasure of seeing a few key players this season based on travel restrictions. Last year's men's champion Sam Hill was not to be seen, nor was Richie Rude, who both decided to stay in their home countries instead of travelling during the pandemic. It was awesome to see Jesse Melamed take that win in Zermatt with Martin Mays hot on his heels, Theo Gali in third. Jack Moyer put in a fantastic performance in his first full-time EWS season, coming in fourth. In the women's race, it was no surprise to see Isabeau Cordier coming out on top, while Morgan Shah followed in second and Ella Connolly third. The second race was in Pietra Ligure, neighbouring the much-loved home of the Enduro World Series down in Finale, Ligure. The weather was thankfully more forgiving here, with some sunshine and warmth greeting the racers. They still had some rain to contend with, but nothing like in Zermatt. Here we saw Isabeau Cordier's dominance in the women's field wane as she suffered an ankle injury. She still put up a fight though and took second behind Melanie Pujan, with Morgan Shah in third. Jesse Melamed couldn't make it 2 for 2 unfortunately, but Adrian Day showed his form and took the win just ahead of Florian Nicolai, and Jack Moyer now up to third place. A week later and 5 kilometres down the road to Finale Ligure for the final round of 2020. The women's field was down one as Isabeau Cordier decided not to race in Finale and focus on healing her injuries. Morgan Shah taking her first ever win, Pietra winner Melanie Pujan taking second, and Estelle Charles coming in third. It would not be a French victory for the men's race, however. After not performing quite to his liking in Pietra, Jesse Melamed came back storming to take the win in Finale, making it his third win to his name. The rest of the podium stayed exactly the same as in Pietra Ligure, with Florian Nicolai in second, Jack Moyer in third. Talk about consistency. Now, because it wasn't a normal year, not as many races as normal, and not all the riders could get there, the Enduro World Series decided not to award an overall champion this year. However, they decided to make it a team championship. All the points that would normally go towards that Riders' Championship were put towards the team, and this year, Pivot Racing came out on top. Great rides there from Morgan Shah, Ed Masters and Bernard Kerr. Okay, so that's what happened. You may already know that. You may have watched all of our highlights from this year because, fortunately, GMBN is now the home to those videos from the EWS. Same going into next year, so can't wait for that. But what did we actually learn from the racing this year? Well, it seems that any pre-season racing helps. Over in Canada, they had the Crankwork Series, a really intense 3 races back-to-back with downhill, enduro, dual slalom. I think there was even pump track. So all sorts of racing, and you know, these racers really need to get their eye in to get every single, you know, tenth, thousandths of seconds, and it made a difference to people like Jesse Melamed. When few other riders had any sort of race time under their belt before coming into the season, it really does pay dividends just to have some racing. You just get your eye in a little bit, and well done to Jesse Melamed. Obviously he rode awesome anyway, but he added 2 EWS wins to a single one that he's had from Whistler in the past, so well done there. Other notable racing happened over in France, with some national French enduro races happen, but also some downhill, where we saw Adrian Day beat the reigning world champion at the time, Loic Bruni, on his enduro bike. So Adrian also up to speed and in really good form when he came into the start of the race season. We feel like a bit of a broken record talking about the French winning all the time, but you've only got to look at downhill racing as well, with Loris Vergier and his back-to-back wins. But particularly in women's Enduro World Series, we've seen the French women absolutely dominate. In fact, there's only ever been one woman not from France to ever take an EWS win, and that is Tracy Mosley. We have, of course, Isabeau Cordier this year, but also Melanie Pujan. And the only non-French person standing on a podium this year was British Ella Connolly. Jack Moyer adapted quickly. It just goes to show that if you're good at riding a bike fast downhill, you can transfer those skills, but not everyone does it quite as quickly or as impressively actually as Jack Moyer, the Australian rider. He has raced some EWS before, never dropping out of the top 10, but not many, and this was his first full-time year, and he really came in swinging. His fourth place in Zermatt and then back-to-back third places in Pietra and Finale really show that speed, and this is on a brand new team and a bike they'd not ridden before this year. E-bike racing is here to stay and likely to really gain in popularity. I have to say I was kind of on the fence. I've raced some e-bike stuff before, but I've always been unsure about how it would translate to a proper race series. And seeing the EWS-E in Pietra Ligure for myself, I was really impressed. And as were the riders, they really enjoyed the stages, the power stages going up the hills. So I'm really excited to see how that develops in the future, but I definitely think the riders and the industry are going to be well behind pushing that race series. Predictions for 2021? Who knows? It seems a bit churlish to make any predictions at the moment, but it looks like it should be a fairly short off-season, finishing racing, end of September, October. The series is due to kick off in March in South America. Let's keep an eye on that. But yeah, not as much time off for the riders as normal, so riders will be straight back into sort of their training, getting bikes ready. There will be some riders licking their wounds, people like Isabeau Cordier, and hoping they can get fit for next year, but there is time for that, of course. But maybe we're not going to see the dominance in the women's field that we have seen from Isabeau in the past. Of course, she was riding injured in Pietra Ligure this year, so that did give some opportunity to the other riders, people like Melanie Pujan, Morgan Shaw, but hopefully they'll be fired up for the off-season and come back 2021 swinging. We could see a good fight in the women's racing. Definitely another highlight from the women's races was Ella Connolly. She backed up a decent result at the end of 2019 with a third place here, so she might be there to challenge the dominance of those French ladies. The men's field is far less predictable. We've got people like Jesse Melamed has shown just how strong he can be, whereas in the past we maybe talked about him crashing a little bit. This year, 2 out of the 3 races, that's really good going. Jack Moyer has shown his speed gaining even through a very short season. Someone like Florian Nicolai as well has really shown his consistency again and his pure speed. Still a rider to finish every single stage of an Enduro World Series and be right there. The other big guns, Sam Hill and Richie Rude, are to be thrown back into the mix in 2021. You've got Martin Mays, you've got Adrian Day has shown a bit of resurgence after his bad elbow injury from a couple of years ago. So it's time to get excited about racing in 2021. If you missed any of our coverage this year of the EWS, there's loads of it on GMBM. We've got shakedown and highlights, but also over on Tech, I took quite a look at a few of the Enduro Racers bikes. So loads of bike checks over there. Plus, you've got that EWS e-racing that I talked about over on EMBN. Give us a thumbs up if you can't wait to see some more bike racing in 2021.